everyone, and welcome to Seneca Studios demo for Spring Gallery Night. We are going to be demonstrating tonight from 6 to 9, so hang out on our live stream if you would like to watch our artists in residence working with our team. So I'm going to take a few moments to introduce our artist in residence real fast before we get into the demonstrations for tonight. Rachael Henson has been working with our team for quite a while now, several weeks, to create some work. This program involves an artist that doesn't usually work with glass, so we're going to have a chat with her in the gallery for a little bit. So hi Rachael, how's it going?
Hello, it's going good.
So tell us, Rachael, a little bit about yourself, what you've been kind of working on outside of before this residency, and then we'll talk about the work in the gallery.
So I'm a sculptor that typically works in mixed media. I really like materials that transform with time, things that decay and like move and kind of like fit other forms. I've been doing a lot of mold making recently, and my medium of choice is really silicone. It's a beautiful, like, soft material that can be used in a myriad of ways. And so when I saw that this residency was happening for people who don't typically work with glass, I was like, I gotta do it. So I applied, and I had some ideas that I wanted to make a reality, so yeah.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about the work you've got in our gallery at this point.
So these are like mixed media glass and silicone pieces. So they're like made in separate parts. I was thinking about like reliquaries as objects and like preserving things and like displaying them. So like body casting, and then my sculpting skills to kind of learn more about how to sculpt glass itself. The stem is actually made out of silicone. It's a moldable wire that I've enhanced with the silicone to kind of take the shape of an actual stem. And like a lot of these other forms, for instance, like the one on top, I think I made that little cage out of silicone, and the little mouth and the little thing coming out.
Oh, that's super cool.
I take a lot of my inspiration from body horror, if you've ever heard of that. It's like a genre from like the 80s. Well, it's a genre now, but it's about like something taking over your body and kind of like visceral things, you know, and I kind of lean towards that kind of aesthetic.
Cool.
I've also been experimenting with the kiln casting area, as well as the hot shop. This right here is actually pâte de verre, which is like the first time I've ever done anything like that, and that's just a technique where you get glass frit and then you mix it into a paste and then you push it into the mold. You can get some great gradient effects. As you can see, I was like very inspired by religious shrines in a sense. And I also use body casting as well for this.
Very cool. Oh yeah, you did a lot of mold making right, during your residency. So these body parts that are in here are cast components that are then picked up in the hot shop and manipulated further. So we're gonna see a little bit of that tonight, right?
Yeah, tonight we're gonna be making each one of these components, except for the silicone component, because that's just something I do by myself.
Right.
But in the hot shop, we're gonna make this, the fingers and this like kind of foliage area that kind of comes up. We're gonna make the lotus pod and then the bell jar.
Oh, fantastic. All right, awesome. Well, thanks, Rachael.
Yeah.
It's been like such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for participating in our program, because we know it's a lot of work, but hopefully you had a great time with us.
Yeah, I had a wonderful time. I would recommend this program for sure, because glass is like a medium that you really need to have the tools to be able to work with it.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, for kiln casting, you need a kiln. For the hot shop, you need to be around a furnace that can heat up the glass. So it's just been a really rewarding experience for me to kind of be able to immerse myself in this, because I wouldn't have had a chance otherwise. So.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about like glass potentially being in your work in the future.
Yeah, like
too, right?
I for sure think that I'm going to continue to use glass in my practice.
We're super excited about that.
I'm happy about it.
Awesome. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna demo for about 3 hours. So we'll follow you into the hot shop and then we'll get started.
Okay, cool.
So you guys don't forget that we've got a chat kind of going. So feel free to put questions in the chat as we go through the demos today. I'm gonna kind of hang out for a little bit with a team, and then we'll get started here in just a little bit. All right. So you guys don't forget that today is FWADA's Spring Gallery Night. That is the Fort Worth Art Dealers Association. They do this twice a year, and it's a fantastic opportunity to check out some of the super cool galleries that are in this neighborhood. Highly, highly recommend it. We've got gallery guides in our gallery, so if you're out and about today in Fort Worth, please do come by. We've got these gallery guides. You can pick one up from us. You can pick one up from any of the FWADA locations. And it's got a listing of all of the galleries that have cool things happening. So not only are we doing these demonstrations tonight from 6 to 9, but we also have another gallery space in the near south side called a pool. And today is our closing reception for that. So make sure you go check that out. If you haven't checked out any of the work at the pool, this is a great opportunity to do that. All right, so I'm gonna hang out for just a second, and we'll be right back in like about 5 minutes to get this thing started. Okie dokie. So we're about to get started with our demos here, but in the meantime, let me tell you a little bit about Seneca Studios. So we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization that is pretty much dedicated to educating people about glassmaking. That's the primary reason we are here. So this residency program is part of that mission. We we kind of started doing this to introduce artists to the world of glass because it's kind of an inaccessible material unless you know the right people, you know, or you have the right opportunity to try this. So we do this opportunity twice a year. So those of you who are artists who are interested in participating with us, please do apply for those. Those applications come up twice a year, and we're always seeking new artists to participate with us. So every glass piece in this studio starts by gathering out of our furnace. Now, Rachael is new to this, so Blake is kind of guiding her through the gathering process. So we gather our glass from a furnace. This furnace sits at about 2100 degrees pretty much year round. We do shut it down in the summer just to kind of do some maintenance on it, as well as to give our staff a break from the heat, because as you can imagine, working in Texas in the summer heat is pretty intense. So this long rod, this long steel rod that Rachael's got her hands on, that is called a punty. It's called a punty rod, and it's used to gather solid bits of glass. At some point during this process, we're going to be blowing forms as well, and you'll notice that they use a blowpipe when that is happening. So if we are blowing a vessel, we will use a different kind of steel rod. Very awesome. So when the glass comes out of the furnace, it's pretty gooey. It's kind of like got a very thick honey or molasses consistency.
That way you're starting cooling cold and you're moving to hot.
Because the steel gets hot pretty fast, we've got to cool it in a pipe cooler before we can really hold on to that area of the punty or the pipe. So Rachael is using the marber to kind of cool and shape the glass. And that glass, as it rolls across the steel, is also starting to get cold. So there's a limited amount of time that we can do this process before we need to go back and heat it up. So Blake is going to take the next gather for Rachael. One of the things to note is that glass is very much a team sport. It takes several people to make something happen. So we're going to see that happen pretty much the entire demo tonight. For those of you who are just tuning in, we are going to be demoing for about 3 hours. Until 9 p.m. Central. If you are local to Fort Worth, feel free to come check it out. If you live in Dallas, feel free to come hang out with us. We've got the bleachers set out. It's a beautiful day. We've got a food truck on site. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening here. So Blake's talking Rachael through the process because she's still pretty new at this. If you were to come take a class with us or do this residency with us, you would certainly be guided through the entire process as well. So the glass needs to be shaped. We're letting it kind of sit in that block as we're turning it to give it a nice round shape. This is the way most things in this studio start. Starts with kind of a Q-tip shape before we sculpt it into anything else. So there's a lot going on in Fort Worth tonight among the artist community here. So if you're an artist, if you're interested in the arts, do come out. There's a lot of openings happening. There's a lot of gallery shows. And we've got some work down in the near south side at the gallery called The Pool. So be sure to come check that out too. If you like glass, you will really enjoy seeing all of the glass in the gallery. So Rachel's heating up the glass. Every time we work with the glass in any capacity and it touches anything that's metal or color, we gotta reheat it to get some heat back in. What color is that, Rachel?
This is ruby.
Ruby, so it's gonna be like kind of a pink?
Yeah, pinky red.
Pinky red. So Rachel's dipping into a glass color powder, and that's gonna end up looking a little bit pinkish, like kind of a pinky red color. So for now, we're gonna see there's gonna be another component to this, but we're starting with a pinkish red color. So those of you who are in the live stream tonight, hanging out with us, thanks for joining us. Do let us know if you have any questions about anything we do tonight. I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat, but I know Heidi is monitoring it as well. And we love chat. We love chatting with you guys, so feel free to put any questions you have, any comments you have about the process. And of course, you know, come check us out in person tonight too. So if you want to come hang out, it's really pretty outside for coming and hanging out on site. We've got a food truck on site too, so don't eat dinner before you get here. So color is applied in multiple layers. Because we're working with a powdered color, we've got to apply many coats of it in order to get the density of color we want. So a very, very, very single application of color is going to make it very, very, very light. So this is like, I think the fourth application of color, fourth or fifth.
Kind of all over the place, but
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be kind of a cool mix.
Yeah, for sure. So you've got several colors in here, yeah?
Yeah. These are the reds, and there's a green right here
Oh,
that I'm
cool.
gonna be using for the lotus pod.
Gotcha. All right, so we're gonna mix it up. It looks like Rachel's working with a little bit of pink tones, some reddish tones, and then green for the lotus pod she's making. So Blake's looking at the color just to make sure she's got a good application of color on there. And then in the meantime, I'm going to show you guys some of basically the shape we're going for. So Rachel's made this lotus pod before. We're going for this kind of a shape. So she's doing the interior color right now. You can see that this lotus pod has a little bit of green on the interior. This one's going to be a little bit different. It's going to have some pinks, some pinkish reddish tones on that interior. So Rachel's been working with us for several weeks now, in this artist in residence program. So I highly urge you guys to come check out the work in the gallery. While we have it up. We should have it up for about a week or so. So make sure you come out to check it out. It's pretty crazy to go from never having done glass before to having work in a glass gallery. It's pretty amazing. So remember, if you're interested, if you're an artist and you're interested in this program, please do apply with us. Our application is on our website. And Heidi put a link to that in the chat a little bit earlier. So definitely go check that out. And if you know an artist who you think would be a good fit to play with some glass, please let them know about that opportunity as well.
The diamonds, the larger diamonds, yeah.
So today, Rachael is being assisted by several people. Kevin there at the bench, Kevin McGee. Kevin actually helped start Seneca. He's one of the founding members of Seneca Studios. Really important part of our team right there. Right over here is Blake Bowles, who is also assisting. Another important part of our team. Blake is on our lead team at Seneca and primarily works in the hot shop. So if you come take a hot shop class, it's pretty likely that you'll get Blake as an instructor. And then last but not least is Nolan in the back there. Hey Nolan. Nolan's on our camera today, but is also one of our instructors in the hot shop. Super important part of our team as well. Thanks, Nolan. We've got a pretty stellar team here at Seneca Studios. I want to also really quickly thank Heidi Childers, who is in the gallery, who is like really, honestly, the backbone of our team, and Seneca wouldn't really exist without Heidi. So if you come into the gallery tonight, maybe bring her some treats, because she's pretty amazing. And no, Heidi, I don't need anything. I'm not buttering you up for that. But yeah, if you haven't had the opportunity to come interact with this team on site, I highly recommend coming and taking a class with us. You really won't have as good an experience anywhere else. The team here works pretty well together. And the goal is really for you to have an awesome experience making stuff on site. So we want you to come by, learn about glass, take a class with us, come hang out for some of our free demonstrations. This is really one of the best ways to get involved, is just to come hang out. So we've got the bleachers set out. If you're thinking you want to come hang out today, bring some friends, bring some drinks, and come grab dinner with us. So Kevin and Blake are putting the next two things together, which is a big disc of color. So we saw Rachael gathering the color earlier today, or earlier, a little while ago. Blake is going to cut that glass onto the marber.
Just let me know when it looks like it's good. Yeah.
And then Rachael is going to squish it a little bit. Nice job. Oh, squish it. And then Kevin's gonna load that on there. All right, so I was mistaken. I don't think they're making a lotus pod quite yet. This is a flower with the fingers in it, correct? Yeah. Okay, so we're doing a different process first. So this is going to end up looking kind of like a bowl. And we're going to stick one of the castings in there. So this right here is basically what we're going to stick in this flower. So the process for making this glass right here, which is super realistic, this, if the camera will focus, this was made basically taking a mold right off of Rachael's hands, making a plaster silica mold, and then casting it in glass. Super interesting process. Once the glass is cast, we put it in a kiln to warm it up. Oops. And that's what Blake has on the end there.
I should get a nose tape.
Yeah. So remember, the best view of this process is really in person. So if you are local, come by and hang out. We're going to be doing this for about 2.5 more hours.
It's green right now, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's that color changing glass. So Blake's got to get the glass to the right temperature. The important thing is that it doesn't get too cold. We don't want it to crack. But if he gets it too hot, it's going to get kind of gooey. It's going to move. We're going to lose detail. So it's kind of a delicate balancing act.
Ready over there? Ready.
And then they're communicating very well about when they're ready.
Turn it 90.
Kevin's got the grabbers. And then Rachael's assisting with pressing it on. Now, heat balance is super important for these processes. We definitely want to make sure things don't get too hot, they don't get too cold. So the next step is going to be heating the connection. And Rachael's going to smush everything in to make that seam line a little nicer.
I'll take a flash and we'll come back and do the next one.
So adding a little bit of texture is going to be important for this to look good visually.
That's better than hitting the shield.
So by selectively heating the glass with a torch, we can create a spot heat. So we can add texture just in a very select area.
Got it, Blake?
Yep. Watch the fingers.
Yeah, they're moving.
Where do we need to go? Oh,
Just
that.
need to let it cool off.
Yeah.
Going too hot.
Where are we? Right there.
So the team's got to communicate very
Same
carefully
spot or where we want it? Right there.
about everything they're doing to make sure they're all watching the piece, making sure things don't get too cold or too hot.
We lost our nice happy mix that we had before, Blake.
All right. And then letting the glass get too cold is a problem. So we gotta also make sure we're constantly equalizing the heat as much as possible. So that's when we use these reheating chambers. Just kind of keep everything from getting too cold.
There we go.
Nice.
There.
Yeah.
So every few moves, we've got to go back into the reheating chamber just to kind of equalize the heat in the back. The thing about glass is it's super prone to shock. And so if the glass gets too cold, it is going to break on us, and we can't have that. Not when we don't want it, for sure. So you guys, if you're kind of thinking you want to see what these look like when they're done, we're going to have these pieces on display after our demonstration. Glass takes a little while to cool down, so it won't be right away, but maybe over the next few days we will have these pieces in the gallery. But you can always stop by tonight and see some of the earlier works that Rachael made. So feel free to come by, check out the gallery. She's got very similar works in the gallery. And this is kind of cool because you can see how they were made.
But this time we know to build the bottom side.
So folks, what you guys are seeing tonight is actually pretty unusual. It is not very common for people to work in multiple studios. Now, not only has Rachael been working in multiple studios for this residency, so she was kiln casting the fingers and some of her components and then picking them up in the hot shop, but she also has done a bunch of mixed media work. So it's not something that tends to happen very often in the glass world, but it makes for a really interesting process and some really cool works too.
Dave, I think we're okay for now.
Getting his thumb down. Right there. Turn 180.
This is the first time that's happened, though.
What happened?
That the finger cracked.
There we go.
Oh, got it.
It's a little better.
You gotta be careful with that metal.
Yeah, so we got a little bit of cracking on the casting.
Only with the oxygen down.
And so when that happens, we can, most of the time we can heat the cracks back in to polish them all out. Doesn't always work in our
Thank you for
favor,
your patience in finding.
but it's good when you catch it like this and you can fix it. So the next step is going to be to heat that pink colored patty. Now the goal with this is to make it kind of into a flower shape. So Kevin's going to heat, and you can see that Rachael's got the pinchers in her hand so that she can shape it kind of into a flowery petal shape. So this has to happen over several moves because we can't risk the glass getting too cold. So those of you who are on our live stream right now, please do share this feed with anyone you think might be interested in glass making. What we're doing tonight is pretty cool. It's going to be very varied as well. So we're doing a little bit of sculpting, we're doing a little bit of blowing. So feel free to share this feed with anyone you think might like to watch. Well, folks, it is quite toasty here at Seneca, so my camera has decided it doesn't want to work with the heat. So hang on just 1 second and we'll get you guys tuned into a different camera. Awesome. So I'm going to give my camera a little bit to chill out for a second, but I'll continue to talk to you through the process. And actually, in the meantime, I can also tell you a little bit about Seneca. I started to do that earlier and I got distracted. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit educational facility. We really exist to teach you guys about glass making. The cool thing about the demo tonight is it is cross-discipline. It spans multiple studios. So we've got the hot shop, which we're working in right now. But Rachael made her castings in the kiln studio. So that's done by creating a mold and then putting glass into it to get a perfect replica of an object. She also did a little bit of cold working for these pieces. So cold working is the grinding of the glass once it is at room temperature. And so multiple disciplines, not only that, but she's also introduced mixed media into her work. So Seneca has 4 different studios within our building. The hot shop that we're watching right now. The kiln studio where we fuse glass, we can cast glass. The cold shop, which is a place for grinding the glass, cutting the glass, basically shaping it once it's at room temperature. And then our flame working studio, where we work with torches to shape the glass. So all of our studios are super fun to try. And if you haven't taken a class with us yet, highly encourage you to try it. One of the cool things about glass is it is a really unique opportunity. So if you're ever thinking about, something to do for a birthday, for a party, to make things extra special for you, this is a really awesome opportunity. Oops, sorry. This is a really awesome opportunity to try. So we're shaping this flower up right now. All right. And Rachel's kind of shaping these petals up for us. So not only do we teach classes, but we are also a rental facility. So once you take a class or several classes and you feel comfortable with this process, you can come rent here too to make stuff. are good on shaping this. We're getting closer to the end now, shaping this flower up a little bit.
A little further apart.
Just a little
Do
bit.
you want to pull the index finger towards that way?
Pull it a little back.
Or going that way?
Yeah, that way. Just tiny, tiny.
Worried about using that metal.
Well, it's pretty hot. I mean, we really changed the color of it, so.
Yeah, absolutely, Vernell. Once you take a class, it's very hard to stop. Those of us who work in this field know that. 'Cause it only took one experience with glass to really lock us into this profession. And remember, if heat isn't your thing, we also do fusing, kiln forming, cold working. So you don't have to play with heat to be able to play with glass.
Right.
So with kiln forming, you cut the glass, you put it together, and then you put it into a kiln to melt it.
Yeah.
I think it looks pretty solid.
That looks
Okay.
awesome.
Okay, well then.
Fingers look good.
And so
We changed
you're
that
not directly
we lost the
not directly exposed to heat. So if heat isn't your thing, remember we've got other options for you to still play with glass. All right. So today's pretty warm out. I think it's probably about 80 degrees or so, so my camera might heat up and be a little feisty with me. So if that does happen, we do have other cameras to keep the feed going, but do be patient with me if the camera does cut out on me. All right, so the next step is going to be to take this piece off the rod and put it into our annealing oven, which are those ovens right by Kevin over there. Those are sitting at about 900 degrees. And so we've got to cool the glass down to room temperature very, very slow. We talked a little bit about how finicky the material is. So Blake is flashing a little bit.
Lost our tip. Oh, that one looks like Greek art. You have the option to make it marble. Or you can polish the tip and adjust the finger size.
So we were just talking about how finicky glass is, and then the team realized that a little tiny chunk of the finger has broken off on us. It happens. It's not glass is one of those materials that really humbles you as you work with it, because no matter how many years you've been working with the material, it will always surprise you a little bit. So we got to cool this glass down very slow. And so Blake is putting in a little cold spot to encourage the glass to break in that location. But he's still got to keep things nice and warm so we don't get more of that cracking issue that we experienced earlier. You can see that at this point Kevin is suited up. He's got the Kevlar sleeves on, he's got a face shield on, and that's because he's going to be grabbing onto the glass and putting it into our annealing oven.
So you guys saw that before I saw the
So then the annealing oven sits at about 900 degrees,
No, I saw the little dollop and I was like,
and it allows us to cool the glass down to room temperature at a very slow rate so that ideally we don't get any cracking.
Agreed. Yeah, those compressions that were
So Blake is reinforcing that constriction with the tool we call the jacks. And then the next step after that is to knock it off and put it away. So once again, making sure that the heat is appropriate for putting it away so we don't get any cracking. Blake is being extra cautious now with the torch, just to make sure those fingers don't cool off too fast. And then Blake's gonna take one more flash just to make sure the heat is good. So you guys, we do these demonstrations once every month, usually on the second Friday of the month, but today's a very special day. This is the gallery night demonstration. We do this one twice a year, in the fall and the spring. It is part of the Fort Worth Art Dealers Association Gallery Night. And it's a great opportunity to check out some art on the street. So Blake is putting a little water just to encourage the glass to break where we want it to break. And then, nice job. And then it goes into an annealing oven to slowly cool down. Nice job, Rachel. That looked good. Awesome. So this is about the maximum amount of protection you're going to see most glass blowers wearing, unless the piece gets really extremely large. Excellent. Nice job, team. All right. So what's the next piece we're going to be working on? Is it going to be the bell jar?
I think so.
Yeah.
Rachel wants to do the pot when the family gets here.
Okay, got it.
So I think we'll probably do the bell jar next.
Got it. All right, cool. So
Real big, long, and smoky.
yeah, bell jar next. So let me show you guys again, since some of you are just tuning in right now. We've got Rachel's work up in the gallery if you want to come take a look. So all of these are made in different components. We're going to be making each of those components today. So we just put away one of those little flowers with the fingers. Next is going to be the bell jar. We're going to assemble those separately. So these aren't going to be assembled hot. These will all be assembled after. And then the last piece is going to be one of these lotus pods that we're going to get done at the end of the evening. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. Everyone's going to get some water just to hydrate. But this will be, we'll do one of these at the end of the night.
We're a nonprofit dedicated to education, dedicated to community, and we use glass art and the creative process to help people to heal and to become interested in the visual arts, to become interested in science. A lot of our programming is focused around STEM concepts, STEAM concepts really, to include the arts. And we are a public access studio here for everyone. Seneca Studios was founded in 2010. We started offering program in early 2011, and we have over 30,000 people come and participate. The brand really illustrates community and bringing together the primary elements in community. We offer glass blowing opportunities, we offer flame working classes and workshops, and we also offer kiln forming classes. We've done programming for domestic abuse survivors, we've done programming for homeless kids and people who are looking to heal. We've used our process to help people to express themselves. One of our probably more powerful stories is about a young woman named Alexis who came in, and she had never worked with glass, and we did a kiln forming project, and she and her brother and several other students cast their ideas into thick pieces of glass, and she made a heart that helped her to express the loss of her father. Had a pacemaker. It was a real interesting piece, and it ended up going at auction to someone who had also lost their father, and it was a really powerful moment for all of us. She was struggling to express herself, and we helped her to find her voice and to make something that she could not only see how it could help her tell her story, but also to connect in the community and help someone else kind of heal through glass art. As Seneca Studio presents to foundations and to donors and receives support, oftentimes the support is specific to a project where we're bringing in kids that are connected with those foundations or with those donors, and that money goes specifically to offering this opportunity to people who wouldn't have it otherwise. The organization has a sustainability model where we generate revenue in many ways, and that revenue is what covers our overhead and keeps the organization going. The support oftentimes is specific to a program, so that 100% of people's donations go towards offering programming to people. Our outreach and our culture of outreach really drives us to find funding outside of that so we can bring the community in and offer programs specifically to our community. Thank you. We are a determined group, and I pledge that any support offered will be used in endeavors in the spirit of community, with kindness and generosity, and with fearlessness.
additional 3 gathers on top of this so we can make something. It's going to end up being about a day long, about that big
Got it.
around in
Thank you.
diameter. This is going to be all clear. Hopefully you guys have had the opportunity to walk into the gallery and see what Rachael has been working on and creating with us over the last couple of months. If you haven't, now's a fantastic opportunity because everybody's a whole lot hurry up and wait as we let this material get cool before we gather over it. If you guys have any questions as we're going through the process, feel free to yell loudly because it is noisy up here.
All right.
Sound like a plan? Yeah. Outstanding. The furnace where we're gathering the glass out of is at 2100 degrees Fahrenheit. It runs 24/7. Holds that capacity 385 pounds of clear. Basically, it's a gigantic ceramic hole, 28 inches in diameter and 17 inches deep. With it being the end of the week, we're running a little bit on the low side of things, so we have to dig a little deeper to find our material. You'll notice as I go in there, my angle of approach is going to be a little steeper. No, you wouldn't really know if it was steeper or shallower. Well, Janet might know, but the rest of you guys, has anybody else ever been here before? Well, you don't count. But I'm glad to see your face. Normally we go in for a shallow kind of angle to gather the glass. This evening we're a little bit steeper, just so we can find the material a little bit faster.
All right.
More doors.
So you guys have got quite a crowd here tonight, and because
So it's nice and toasty
Kevin
out here,
is
winding the glass on,
Kevin is
turning it
on
over,
the microphone, I'm gonna let him do a little
set it off,
narration too.
And then come out with a fresh layer on top. Every time we come out of that furnace, we're going directly to our pipe cooler, so we can cool the pipe down and stay close to the material at the end of the pipe. The closer you can be to it, the easier it is to see it, and in theory, the easier it is to manipulate it.
What's going on?
We have a lot of different tools to change the shape of the material as we work. In this instance, we're using some cherry wood blocks to cool and shape the exterior. We want it to look like a nice big vacuum tip. That's our end shape with these blocks as we're working. Since they are wooden, they're going to smoke. They may get a little bit sticky. As that happens, I'm just dipping into the water bucket behind me to keep a nice layer of steam running over the material. Now we're getting nice little feedback.
Why cherry?
Tight grain structure, natural sugars. Burns really slow. Any
What's up?
fruit-bearing wood works really nicely.
Can you hear me?
So I captured a little bit more air pressure,
Is it
allowing that hole to expand towards the head of the pipe.
You can still hear me.
Once again, we'll let it get cool, then add another layer on top of that.
not sure if I should talk because
This is another tool that we can utilize to change the shape of the material. This is just a bunch of wet folded up newspaper. This is the blank special. About 5,000 layers of newspaper folded over itself
All right,
multiple
cool.
times and then saturated with water.
All
It's
right.
big, it's thick, it's heavy, it's dense, it's wood. So we'll let it get cool once again. Judging readiness based on temperature and movement, and mostly color. If it's really, really bright, we know it's got a lot of heat to it. We want it to let it get a little bit colder. Go for it. Either one. Oh, the other one. Okay. Sound good?
So you guys, the best seats in the house tonight are actually in person because we've got quite a crowd, and you're gonna get the best views here on site. So like I said, if you're local, come out and hang out with us.
Yeah, these lenses are actually tinted, so we can see the heat in the glass a little bit more true. Also, as we're working later in demos, we're going to be using this oxygen propane torch. It burns significantly brighter, and this helps reduce the sodium flare. If you hang around and get to see that part of the process, it's going to look like a big yellow ball of heat. We can actually see through that yellow ball and see where we're actually touching the material.
All right, so Kevin is gonna gather out of our furnace, which sits at about 2100 degrees pretty much all the time. that glass when it comes out of that furnace is pretty liquidy, so it's kind of like honey. It's like super liquidy honey when it comes out of the furnace, and then as you work it, it becomes more like a taffy. So this is about the hottest and the most liquidy it will be. All right, I'm gonna set you guys down for just a moment and we'll be back in a second.
Get some heat, go to the marker, do a little shaking, hang and blow, and then we'll heat blow the bench. So this glass has a relatively long working time in the world of glass, about 20 to 25 seconds before you need to add more heat and make it pliable again. So we're going to always be getting up from our bench, bringing it over to the reheating oven or glory hole to keep things really nice and toasty. Rotation is absolutely key because if you do stop turning, gravity is going to work. When you've got a bubble, it moves even more aggressively on that interior. So we want to actually blow this bubble down towards the bottom a little. And we'll do that in small little segments. We're going to get this kind of established, let it get cold, or put a neckline in it, then add another layer of glass on top of that as a post gather. Clear glass, look clean, nice and easy. And it is orange because it has absorbed all the heat energy. If we were allowed this to get nice and cool down 1,000 to 1,100 degrees, it would look crystal clear. And the whole time that I'm cooling and shaking with this paper plate's adding a little bit of air pressure to drive that bubble down deeper to the bottom. And stop here.
All right, so great question from the crowd right now about whether the glass is actually colored orange. And no, when we're working with the glass, it is very often very, very hot. So what we're getting is a lot of residual heat from the piece. That's really what's contributing to that orange color. So you guys, as you're watching, if you have any questions about what's going on, feel free to let us know.
Absolutely, perfect position.
Beautiful.
And I'm starting with relatively light pressure. I just want to define the line. I'm not looking for a really, really tight constriction on this. Just enough where we know where we need to break it. Rachael is doing an exceptional job of shielding my hand and my wrist. I have incredibly tender skin, so this is really, 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 really appreciated. And that looks like it'll do. We'll let this get nice and cool, and then put one more layer of glass on top of it. Do a little bit more blowing so we can get it into a cylinder, and eventually use that wooden trough that's sitting on the table to give us some nice straight walls.
So you guys, at this point, the glass is not moving too much. We gotta still keep it nice and warm. But if it's too warm, when we go into the furnace, it's gonna kind of disform. So it's gonna deform, sorry. So we've gotta let it cool down enough that we can gather over it.
There's literally big chunks of color that you can break off
So Kevin's gonna let this cool down a little bit, and then he's gonna gather over that bubble.
Oh, it all depends on what your end result wants to be. There are certain opportunities where one is going to be more desired than the other. It really and truly does depend on what your end result is. It can also depend on if you're working with, what the technical ability of the people you're working with too. So it's not moving too much. I think we'll put our fourth and final gather on top of it. By putting this neckline in, I want to, when I go to gather, I want the glass to basically stop right about there. I don't want it to cover up what is on the pipe. Yes, ma'am? I am going to push gather. We'll see how well I do.
So you guys, this is the trough that Kevin's talking about going into. So we're gonna be gathering a layer of clear.
And we're not going to strip, we're going to use that all.
And then we're gonna cool that down. So the metal heats up pretty fast when we gather hot glass.
In about 3 seconds.
So Kevin has gone onto that pipe cooler real fast to cool the steel down.
Dogs or marshmallows, they burn almost instantly.
If you've been hanging out with us on this feed for a little bit,
Sure, no one hits down here.
then you saw the last piece was solid. This one is hollow, and so Kevin's working on a blow pipe. We're marvering it into a block just to like kind of chill out and shape the glass. And then Kevin goes over to the steel table to cool and shape the glass. So we're doing a lot of shaping moves on this hot glass. I thought he was planning on stripping it, but I don't think he is.
You are keeping it all. So at this point, my ability to have a conversation with you guys is going to be pretty limited. So if you do have questions, yell loudly. Otherwise, I'm pretty focused.
I don't know. It'll be hard to move it at this point, I think. Yeah. So one of the best tools in the hot shop is actually the newspaper.
I'm not looking for a lot of movement right at one point in time.
So Kevin's using the newspaper to kind of chill the glass as he's shaping it. The newspaper doesn't burn because we keep it nice and wet. Thanks for that that overhead shot, Heidi, of the newspaper.
So we've got a measurement.
The newspaper is kept nice and wet, so the glass rides on a thin layer of steam as we're shaping it.
The opening to the glory hole gets bigger as well. You are limited in this studio to what you can physically carry, what you can get hot, and what you can cool down. So if it doesn't fit into one of those 3 categories, you probably shouldn't make it.
So you'll notice that Kevin's hands are constantly turning as he's working this piece. Glass is super susceptible to gravity. So you can see as he's hanging it, the glass is dropping to the floor a little bit. And then he's constantly turning to make sure the glass is nice and centered.
Easy.
It doesn't get lopsided.
Try and keep this a little more compact.
So as Kevin is shaping the glass, Blake is blowing on a hose to sort of inflate the piece.
Stop. Read that again.
And then we've got to keep adding heat to the piece as we're shaping it. So Kevin's going back into that reheating chamber. do you want to pass the mic to Blake so he can narrate? Answer.
So what passed the mic?
So Kevin's heating the glass, and he's gonna keep heating it so that as he's working with it, he can continue to change its shape. Cold glass doesn't move very well. It tends to break. So we've got to heat it if we want to shape it any further.
A little easier.
There you go.
Stop it here.
Awesome.
That means we can build that heat and really let it fall. And you can also bring that paddle from behind over my shoulder.
Okay, I wasn't sure
So
if
you
the
can
right
stand
angle.
behind me
Okay.
and actually angle it down.
Perfect.
I think we'll blow it one more time, try and push the bubble a little deeper. I like the diameter. Yeah, me too.
So this piece is pretty big, and usually the bigger a piece gets in this studio, the more you're going to need a team to kind of work with you. So we're going to see a bit of the team get involved. Nolan is on the camera, but he's also going to be assisting a little bit with doors and things like that. So as a piece grows, the team tends to get a little bit larger. So you'll notice that Kevin was being shielded a little bit. As the piece gets bigger, the heat also gets a little more intense. So getting a little bit of protection from the heat is important. So Blake's blowing into this hose as Kevin is shaping and turning. We're going for a cylinder shape. So every piece that we shape in the studio, almost every piece, if it's hollow, it most often starts on a blowpipe and then it is blown into a bubble first. So this longer shaped bubble is going to slowly turn into a cylinder.
Size check. Price check. Aisle 6. Oh, yes, excellent.
Rachel's checking the size just to make sure that that piece we made earlier is going to fit.
Go from there.
And then once Kevin gets some heat into this, we're going to go right into this guy, this little trough right
We've got
here.
a really nice big diameter set. Our caliper is probably somewhere around 6 inches in width. This is probably pushing 8, which is going to be great because as I get this hot, I'm going to drop it down so it'll stretch out and lose some of that diameter. Because we want this to be a nice, reasonably straight cylinder, as I come out and extend the length on this, we're going to drop it into that wooden trough over there with the red newspaper. I'm going to do my best to spin really nice and quickly. Blake will probably hook up the hose, and Rachel is going to use that wooden paddle to make sure the bottom stays nice and flat. That's the goal.
So Blake has wet this newspaper to make sure that we get that steam layer going.
We'll all find out together.
And then Kevin's going to come over, drop that bubble in, and he's going to spin as Blake is blowing into the other end.
There we go, got some nice movement.
So I'm going to get out of the way
Drop this down.
so I can show you guys what's going on. Kevin's lengthening it a little bit,
And blow blade.
and then as he turns, Blake's blowing to inflate. We're getting a
Everyone
nice
stop.
cylinder shape.
Let's check our measurement. Calipers. Oh, we can get longer and taller. Cool. We'll do that again. Nice job, everyone. I'll take the right door coming out. I'm good for right now. Outstanding.
So communication is key in this studio. You can see Nolan ran off to help. As soon as Kevin mentioned that he might need a door opened, Nolan was right there to help. So we're going to do that move again,
As I'm heating this, I'm
just to
doing my very
lengthen
best to
the
turn relatively
form.
slow, so it doesn't sling out when it's least expected. Door, please. We won't swing this time. We'll just let gravity work a little bit more manageable.
Yeah.
Stretches it out, makes it
turning. Blake
Nice
is
and easy, Blake. Rachel, push
blowing.
hard.
There you go, Rachel.
Nice
And everyone
job,
stop.
team. Nice job.
Now,
Wanna-
we keep on our diameter.
yeah, check the size.
Oh, easy, breezy.
Awesome.
What do we think about that bottom? Looks like it's got a little kick, yes?
Yeah, probably do that either
One
there or the
neat-
bench. Yeah.
One neat little easy shape will be good.
Okay.
We'll go back to that trough one more time.
One more time, we'll give it a little mostly where you know it's
Coming over.
all right.
Do you ever say coming in hot?
That's too many syllables, so no.
Should. Coming in hot.
Nice and
Alright.
easy, Blake. Real subtle. And stop the air. Push on the paddle. And everything stops. Check.
Size check. So the reason why they're checking the glass so very much is to make sure that the components that Rachel made earlier fit into this vessel.
Size, shape, everything look good? Okay. Yeah, go for a flash.
So you guys-
Rachel likes the size and the shape we've got built on this guy.
Rachel
We'll
is
flash it
approved.
down, give it a little bit of maintenance heat to make sure everything's nice and comfortably warm. And then I'll put on some gloves, cover our sleeves and the face shield, pick this up, put it into a cooling oven. Eventually, we're going to do what we call hot popping. We're going to take a little small torch with a little crease up on that shoulder, that broad section, and actually just let the heat explode the top off. I think Rachel should break this. Oh, you didn't even get to carry this one. It's up to you. If you want to take a flash, go for it.
Oh my.
You don't have to if you don't want to. There is no peer pressure. It's all friendly pressure. You want to encourage you to work outside of your comfort zone.
Hey, do you ever just get broken?
We buy very specific glasses as well. Absolutely, yeah. There are way too many different formulas in one glass. What we're using is very specific to the color that we have. Color we can't take and melt it with the glass. It will separate it and cool down because they have a different cool expansion and contraction rate. There you go, Rachel. Yeah! Nicely done.
Nice job, Rachel. So that glass is really heavy. It is very heavy. The team makes it look kind of easy.
Everything goes through a slow cooling process. This little guy will take down to nicely done.
Nice job, Rachel. It is super hard to keep things turning and centered, especially as it gets bigger, for sure. The team always loves the artists to be a part of the work and get involved as much as possible.
One more.
One more flash, and he's gonna sit and give it our water tap.
Right. And then this part of the process is called flashing. And so the key is making sure that the piece doesn't get too cold. Or adding water into that constriction that we made earlier with the jack line.
I'm just here to kind of shield you.
Yeah. And that water is causing a nice chilly
I think
spot.
that'll do it.
Next step,
Boom.
step break,
One beautiful cylinder.
and then put it into an annealing oven for it to chill out. Nice job. Nice. That was awesome.
And once you do that a few times, you'll figure the right way to do it where it feels like nothing. Because technically, it's not a ton of weight.
So that cylinder is gonna be cold worked later. We're gonna cut it open through a process called hot popping, and then it will be an open cylinder. So we're gonna take like about a 5-minute break, just let the team chill out a little bit. I'm gonna show you guys around the gallery in the meantime, just so you know what you're missing out on if you don't come by today. So our gallery is here pretty much all the time. You can come check it out whenever you would like to. But Rachael's work is only going to be in here for a week. So we've got cool glass. If you're ever looking for anything you want to buy as a gift, maybe a gift for yourself, we've always got some cool glass available, no matter what your budget is. So these are some cool pieces by Duncan McClellan. Gorgeous. When the light hits them right, they're gorgeous. So gorgeous. Some cool smaller pieces that were made in the shop. They're all made in the shop as well. These are actually made, this casting was made in a very similar fashion that Rachael cast her fingers. The model was made, but the process of getting them into glass is very similar.
Okay.
So cast is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've gotten blisters just from like the residual heat of it.
We've got a bunch of hot shop work in here from a bunch of artists. And the process of cold working is how you get these really cool optics and textures on the glass.
Yeah. Yeah. It was nice. Yeah. I think I was making a face. I was like,
So feel free to come by and check out our gallery. We're gonna have Rachael's work in here for about a week. So if you missed checking it out, once this live stream ends, this is gonna be on our YouTube channel and our Facebook. So you can come back and check out the video of her talking about all of this work. Don't forget, if you're coming by for a gallery night, you can also pick up one of these guides with us if you want to see what is going on in the area tonight. Awesome. So I'm going to set you guys down for a little bit. I'm going to set the camera down. While our team takes a little bit of a break, we should be back in about 5 minutes to continue this live stream. All right. This mic is going to be live. All right.
It's still pretty on there.
All right, you guys, so we're getting ready to start our next, maybe our last piece for the evening, depending on how this goes. Rachael has been working on these cool lotus pods during her residency. We're gonna do a demo on how she makes those coming up next.
But that differential material does not cause separation.
Are you guys ready to kind of get rolling? You guys ready to get rolling?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to use this mic stalling.
Yeah. All right, you guys, so the team's getting warmed up for the next piece. We should get started in just about maybe 3-4 minutes here. So they're having a little discussion right now about color. Blake is talking to Rachael about what sort of color pattern we can put on there. We've got a couple of different green shades of green up in the color scoops. So if you guys are ever here taking a class, you'll get to apply your own color onto your piece. So depending on what you are making, if you come in for a pumpkin, you'll get to select your colors and then apply them as well. We try our best to make you a big part of the process. Even though some of the shaping you are going to need an instructor hanging out with you and helping you, we try our best to have you be a large part of making. So Blake is gathering out of our furnace. This furnace, if you're tuning in for the first time, this furnace sits at about 2100 degrees pretty much all the time. When the glass comes out of the furnace, it's pretty hot, and we've got to keep the pipe turning. So you'll notice as we're working through this entire process, the artist always has their pipe turning, they're constantly using their hands. And that's because a liquid material is going to be super susceptible to gravity.
Yes, exactly. And she works with silicones quite a bit, so that little bottle.
So we're going to apply color next. So these scoops, Rachael's kind of tapping the color onto the glass. I'm gonna try my best not to get too close to everything because our cameras like to overheat in this weather. And then after she applies a little bit of color, we've got to heat that glass back up. So going back into the reheating chamber, just to give it a little bit of heat. And she's gonna do multiple layers of color. So we're gonna go back into the color right after this.
So are you doing the second layer? We're doing one layer like this?
Yeah, if you want to put another coat on there, yeah. Basically, I was thinking of more separating the color.
So the color needs a couple of coats just to get a little bit of density, to make sure that it's not too light in application.
Get that nice and gooey once it's hot.
And then Rachel's got to go back into that reheating chamber just to make sure that we heat all of that glass back in. So Burnell, yes, we are hoping we will have some demonstrations during Arts Goggle. Oh yeah, actually Burnell, you remind me of a very good point. I should talk about this. I always forget to talk about all the amazing things we've got going on. So on April 23rd, we've got the Glass Garden, which is going to be happening during the Arts Goggle. That is a major shopping event in our neighborhood. So if you're local and you want to come buy some cool glass, April 23rd, we're going to have a bunch of glass set out for sale on the lot. There's going to be a number of artists up and down our street for the Arts Goggle. And so it's a nice way to come out, collect some art, meet some of the artists in your community. So highly, highly recommend you don't miss that one. And yes, we do plan on having a bunch of different artists demoing that evening. We're hoping for that. We're still working through some of the logistics on that, so we'll know for certain within a couple of weeks. But yes, that's our goal. That Arts Goggle event, Heidi just put the link in the chat. That's not to be missed, you guys. That's an awesome, awesome event. Super great opportunity to pick up some art from the neighborhood. We close down the street, so that is not a Seneca event. That is an event put on by the Near South Side in our community. They close down the street, and a bunch of artists set up booths up and down the street to sell glass, sell crafts, sell wood, sell metal, all sorts of different paintings, things like that. We sell glass here on our lot, so our entire lot is going to be covered in glass, and it's going to be amazing. So if you guys have ever been out for our pumpkin patch that happens in the fall, this is going to be similar to that, but we're not going to have pumpkins out. We're going to have a glass garden out because it is the spring. Super cool. I mean that's super hot. So hot.
All right, so I'll get the second.
So the glass is on there, the color's on there. The next step is going to be to gather a layer of clear over that.
I'll let the core get a little chilly so it's not moving around as much.
So Blake's going to let that glass chill out for a sec. If we go into the furnace with glass that is too hot, that color is going to end up in our furnace and contaminate our clear glass. So we got to wait for that to chill out a little bit. And then the next step is gathering clear glass over that. Now when Blake goes into the furnace, that looks pretty orange, but that is just the color of the heat. So the glass in there is actually pretty crystal clear. We use a glass from North Carolina called spruce pine in our furnace. And although that glass looks orangey, white, yellowish in color, it is totally clear, except for that green color that Rachael applied a little bit earlier. So Blake's assisting Rachael in putting some of the color on. If you guys are coming in for a class, you're going to be doing this process with our instructors. So remember, Rachel's pretty new to glass. This demo is brought to you through our visiting artist program. And this residency is actually our way of connecting artists in the local community who've never had an opportunity to work with glass. This is our way of connecting them to an opportunity that lets them work with glass. So Rachel's actually not worked with glass in this capacity before her residency, and she's been working with us for several weeks in the studios to cast glass, to sculpt it in the hot shop, to cold work it. And I wish I could give you guys a little bit more of a close-up, but because my camera has overheated today, I'm a little nervous to get a little too close to the heat. So we'll get you guys some close-ups here shortly. But for now, I'll try to minimize that. So don't forget, you guys, we've got so many different things that happen at Seneca Studios. It's easy to forget about all of them, but there is a way for you to get involved if you want to. So at this very moment in time, we do have an awesome silent auction that's going on at a space just down the street from us. So there's a place called The Pool, which is a community art space. And they are the Pool is a part of the near south side. So it is a new space. We have actually the first exhibition that space has ever had. It is up now, and today is the last day to see that show. So as a part of that show, we do have a silent auction going. So if you go to vitro.moda, and that link has been posted already in this chat, you can check that out online. That silent auction is going to be closing out here fairly soon. So not tonight, but over the next couple of days, I believe. So it's a good opportunity to get a good deal on some glass work. Now Rachael is using a wooden block. That block is made of cherry wood or fruit wood, and it's a nice hard wood that stays soaked in water so that we can use it to shape the glass. The water stops the wood from burning too quickly, and instead of the block, we can also use newspaper. Newspaper is a pretty cool tool because it allows the glassmaker to put their hands very, very, very close to the material.
Yes.
So by inflating the bubble a little bit, we can slowly start to blow and shape that. So you can see that Blake has attached a hose to the end of that pipe. That's going to allow him to inflate it as he is shaping it. Now, the shape we're going for is something like this. We're making this little lotus pod. So that form is hollow, and then Rachel's going to shape the outside. So she's going to use a variety of tools to get that shape. So you guys, we've got quite a number of people out here for gallery night. We do have a food truck on site as well, so if you're thinking about grabbing some food, come check it out. We are going to be demoing till about 9 p.m. So we may have time, depending on how long this last piece takes, we may have time for a couple of small things, we'll see. So Blake's got this hose attached to the end of that blowpipe. That's what's allowing him to shape as he inflates it.
What is our plan, Blake? Want to add another layer before we start dimpling?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we've got all the color we need on this to create our lotus pod that will sit on the top of one of Rachel's vessels that is in the gallery. If you have been in here, please take it back out. But this is kind of what we are ultimately going to create with this object. We've got 2 layers of clear glass on there with a lot of colored glass applied to the surface, adding a little bit of air pressure, and then we're going to gather on top of it, aren't we, Jean?
We are.
And then we're going to add all the texture that you see on the top of this, using the hot torch and then a different tool to press everything into it.
Awesome.
As we're working, if you guys have any questions, yell loudly. My name's Kevin. I'll do my very best to make up answers for you guys.
So Kevin's on the microphone PA system, so I will let him speak once he starts blabbing.
Line or jack line to the back end of the piece where it connects to the low line. Ultimately, this is where it will be removed when we are done creating it. We want this line to be nice and even and concentric, so when we do add water to stress and break it, it shears off nice and predictably. We don't have to worry about cracks radiating up into the object.
I can't fully tell if the audio from Kevin is feeding to this live feed, so that constriction that he's created, that Blake has created with the jack line, is going to allow us to break the piece free from the blowpipe.
So we're going to add just a little bit more air to change that tip, make it a little bit more round, not as pointy, because we will let this get cold and then add an additional gather over the top. So that way we can add more mass, and then when we use a really hot torch, we don't burn the surface of the glass.
So that constriction is going to let us break the glass free. And if we don't have that constriction, the glass doesn't tend to want to break off of the pipe. So it's very, very important to have that jack line in there.
8 to 10 sheets folded in thirds and then in thirds. So you end up with just like a nice pillow of wet newspaper. As long as the newspaper is wet, we don't really feel any burning. We do cut the corners, so if there is any steam that builds up and shoots out the edges, it doesn't penetrate down towards our hands.
It looks like a speckled egg.
Yeah, it does.
So it's important to let this material get
That's that bigger frit on top of the powder.
cooled up to somewhere like a rosin.
Yeah. That's so cool. I love that.
So the color application is really interesting.
Can you hear me now? Could you guys hear me okay? Okay. So again, we want this to get nice and cool, so that way when we add a new layer to it, we don't have to worry about the middle of this falling apart and falling back into our clear bowl. We gauge our readiness on color and movement. If it's moving really aggressively, we certainly want to wait before we add that layer. And if it's got a really, really bright glow, we also want to wait. Would you like to mark? Thirsty. Enjoy. Oh, that's a sad one. Or is that the good one? The good one is sad. We're all sad. No. So we've got this nice egg shape. We have our neckline set up. We're going to let it get just a little bit cooler when Blake goes in to get this next gather. He's not going to cover up everything. This is called a post gather. So we are gathering about a ½ inch off of the neckline. So that way we don't get a lot of material on there. Nice job.
Right there.
So Blake likes the temperature. He's going to go add that new layer of material. Nolan's going to open the door and then close it in a little bit. It's a nice quick wind in there. You don't want to spend a lot of time, especially with that material blown out relatively full. It can collapse on you. It'll come out, strip off the excess that he doesn't want. Because that is clear glass, it goes into our little recycle bin. So on Sunday, we will take all of that clear glass and actually throw that back into our furnace and remelt it.
Finally. This is the first time I've
What do we see?
There's no bubble.
Yay, we have no extra bubbles.
Only took like 6 of these. It's just that one seed. More texture.
All right, so after this layer
Now
of
we'll shape it
glass,
first,
we're
right?
going to be able to
it
shape it.
like this UFO.
Yeah, and then we press, and then we do the crimping.
So the first step is going to be to make like kind of a UFO shape, a flat.
Use the newspaper to kind of
Flat.
compress it in, flatten it onto itself.
A flat shape.
Can you top off with the raw material, or do you have to use it all up and then fill again?
You can certainly top the furnace off with additional clear glass. You want to make sure if you are going to do that you don't have anything scheduled early in the morning because as it melts down it causes air bubbles. And if you go in there and you have to process the material correctly, you'll have a big field of air bubbles on the surface. You go add that layer of clear glass on top and everything just that looks like it's just a bunch of crazy little air bubbles all over the place. Now you give it enough time to heat up, squeeze itself down together, and then let the air bubbles rise to the surface and pop. Absolutely. If you're using cullet or processed glass already, you can fill it in and get much faster than you. The batch glass that we normally melt, as I was saying, that takes about a 12 or 14 hour cycle from the time you're done filling the furnace to the time you can actually use the material the next day. We heat it up to 2300 and melt it, process that for 8 hours, and then take another 6 to cool it down to 2000 degrees so the glass physically contracts and squeezes itself.
Hey, Kev. I'm gonna put this on you too, just so because you're muffled on that feed. Stick that in your pocket. Wait, is that blinking? Yeah. All right. That way, this also feeds to the live feed because you're answering some interesting questions.
Okay. Does that work?
It's going to be a little bit more direct though. This is kind of a practice one, but it's going to have those holes and the crimping and everything. So that's kind of an idea of what it's going to look like at the end. Okay, very good. And it's going to go on top of the big jar? So there's a jar, and that's going to be the top of it. Like the ones inside. Okay.
So Blake's slowly using that wet newspaper to compress that down to more of a disc form. Rachel was just explaining that in a few moments, once everything kind of gets solidified, we're going to use the hot oxygen propane torch to start spot heating specific areas. So then she's going to come in with that sculpting tool she's got in her hand, has that little tiny ball that's welded to the end of a stick, and then start adding the little impressions to create the texture for the lotus pod.
All right, I'm behind you, okay?
So we'll let it get a little chilly, and then we'll start spot heating and dimpling.
Do you want me to do the spot heating, Rachel, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I need to use both hands.
Gotcha. This will be interesting to work around.
And I think the size is good. We can go bigger if needed. Do we need to measure the diameter? Remember, we are going to get wider once we, just a rough guess, I think we're close to what would be nice. Right? By the time we
Yeah, because we do want this one to be a little bit wider than what that measurement is, because that jar is going to be wider.
I'm totally fine with that.
Cool. Well, once you make the silicone tendrils, that should look pretty cool. So Blake's going to let this get on the chilly side of things. Sorry for whoever's standing behind me, because I'm going to be using the hot torch to isolate heat where we want it to go and to save my knees. Oh, that's better.
Yeah, get comfortable.
I might as well. I'm going to be here a while.
So I think we're going to do the dimpling immediately after torching, right?
Yes. Yeah, so we torch, dimple, 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 flash, torch, and just keep repeating that process.
Okay. So I'll do a little flash and we'll get some.
Sounds good. So this torch is oxygen and propane, so we can get a really nice hot flame. Gets about 3,000 degrees in temperature, give or take. This is going to give us an opportunity to isolate heat in one specific area to not allow the rest of the material to move. So I'm kind of wandering around in a circle, creating a nice hot isolated area, looking for a color shift. For you guys, it probably looks very yellow. For us, we can kind of see into that flame. So we've got a nice hot area. Rachel can give it a little push, and we'll kind of get started. More heat all over, or we've got
Maybe in that same spot.
Okay.
Just because I think I need more heat.
So if we can take that fan that's over by the hole and just angle it not at Blake's back. There we go. Now we don't have that wind blowing against us. Flash?
Yeah, already have flash.
We do have some good thickness on this one, even on the oil, so we gotta get set up.
Yeah, we do have quite a bit of thickness, as Blake was just saying. So we've got the opportunity to soak some really nice heat into this guy as we're working. And again, just kind of focusing that hot torch in a generalized area. When it starts to look like a nice bright orange, take that away so Rachel can kind of squish into it. And apologize for the extra loudness. I'm going to hit that right there. And then we'll just keep working up. Stay on this bottom side.
Maybe one more now.
Okay. Go for that section right there. Cool. Do another flash. But we just want to keep slowly adding this heat to it. If we were to get the entire object as hot as possible and then try and do it, we wouldn't have the control, and we wouldn't end up having these really nice defined indentions. There we go. Cool. And once we start getting a little bit of a heat island, we can actually expedite the process because that heat's staying soaked in just a little bit longer. Give us a little blow if you can, Blake. And stop. Yeah, let's go ahead and cap, especially working in that center section. So we're going to have Blake cap the pipe as Rachel's adding compression when we're working in the middle of the pod. So that way as she presses in, that middle section doesn't compress down and force that bubble back out the head of the pipe. So there's we're kind of having a little bit of an internal joke over here. There's a process called Battuto, B-A-T-T-U-O, which is a technique where you're actually using stone or diamond tools once the glass is cold to create basically what looks like a hammered texture. So we're just doing that same type of a hammered texture, but using a hot tool to make that actually physically happen. Sorry. Okay.
How are we doing?
You're kind of shallow.
Maybe I shouldn't have put the other mic pack there in that midsection. Let's get a cap on this one, Blake.
Yeah.
And then after this one, a little blow. Good. Sorry for the lack of conversation. Surprisingly, you do have to concentrate while aiming a really, really hot flame in the direction of people you're working with.
Do you?
I think it's helpful. It keeps, you know, your friends around a little bit longer.
Friends are a good thing.
Absolutely. And especially when we're hot and batutoing, we need those friends to make it happen. Oh boy.
It might be that wire is rubbing against her.
There, I just turned off the overhead.
Okay.
That'll probably make a huge difference.
So probably I could just do like this right here, like da 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 da.
Okay.
And then we can start crimping.
Cool, sounds good. A little deeper heat.
Yeah. A little bit more. Keep going.
Nice, you're starting to actually see the color and understanding the heat. That's pretty awesome. What do we think? Take a look-see?
Yeah, let me take a look and then we can start changing.
Sounds good. We are getting better. That's a huge plus. And it's kind of hard to tell just because it's all in like a nice yellowy green.
Maybe right there.
Okay. Where'd that go?
Yeah, just like one or two, just to, because the rest I'm gonna squeeze out, I guess.
They're good?
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
I guess it's time to crimp.
Rip it.
Crimp it.
So much better on this bigger pipe.
Oh, I can imagine. Alrighty, so we've got all of our dimples done. The next stage is to actually heat all around the perimeter. So then Rachael can come in with the crimps and actually flatten and flare the exterior of that lotus pod. So this is a little different where with the last approach we heated it and then immediately went to the tool to change the form. This one we're going to spot heat, take a flash, which is just its 8 to 10 second heat, and then Rachael will come back, take those crimps and actually mush it.
Those warm tips.
Yeah. Oh.
I think you're on that dot. Yeah. Is that what you were using?
What?
The dot to.
Oh no, I was not.
Okay, I will.
No, we need some more heat, don't we? Yeah. Thanks for moving that. I appreciate it. It's the small things.
That's what I'm here for.
So as we were discussing earlier, we've got significant thickness in this, so we've got to build a little bit more heat than what we were doing when we had Rachael in here and we're just kind of working out the process. So it takes a little bit longer for the heat to soak down into the core. That's looking a little bit more even. We'll go take a nice big flash, come back, and then hopefully crimp it and get that to move where we want it to move. Even looks warmer. There we go. Nice. So probably don't pull too much further than that,
Yeah.
so we maintain thickness. As Rachael's pulling and grabbing these, we don't want them to get really long and skinny too fast. If that happens as we're working around, those skinnier, thinner parts will actually start to thermally stress and crack, break, and could even fall off. So we don't want to stretch too aggressively right away. Got a nice big heat. Go grab a little flash, come back and do it again. Sorry. There we go. Nice. Nice little wiggle. Excellent.
Maybe after she crimps each one, a little like torch.
On
Have a
the...
little- yeah.
Okay.
Just flash. Exactly. Yeah.
Good
a
call.
flash with a hot torch, if you will.
Yeah, directly after the metal touch.
You got it.
Not yet, not yet. I'll let you know. I'm trying to stay a little cool until.
I didn't even say anything.
Yeah, I think that.
You didn't have to.
Any questions from anyone? Perfect.
How hot is that torch?
This torch is about 3,000 degrees of heat. Just enough to cook a hot dog.
That's hot.
Or goes straight to the nerves?
Or straight through the nerves.
Can't feel any spot at all.
That's
Nerves.
I kind of like the color getting pulled into the.
yeah, into the kind of flanges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
That paint's part of the design.
No, of course it's part of the design. It's all planned.
Exactly. Everything's in there.
What are you talking about? It's all planned. I'll see what this one looks like. Stand by on this one.
So certainly as Rachel is pinching and pulling and extending the material out, we're running out of real estate on those doors that Blake keeps going back to keep the glass nice and warm. So here in just a few moments, my back is going to get a little bit hotter because one of those doors is going to get a little bit more open, so Blake can get in and out without touching the doors and adding texture that we don't want to have. Reach. Sorry. We need like another little pilot light way out here.
Yeah.
Is the glass hot enough to ignite the
Nope. A lot of times you can just ignite this torch off the glass because it's so nice and hot. Fortunately actually, if it was that hot, this thing would just be a soupy mess and we couldn't really manipulate it predictably. But because it's not really ripping hot, can't light the torch off the glass. So I got to reach across every once in a while or just kind of feather the trigger to keep the flame lit.
I'm not cooking out our texture up front, right?
I don't think so. Texture's still there?
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm probably going to need to do another spot heat around
Sure.
the edge to fill those ones in.
Totally makes sense.
Why?
We're all standing there.
Those are all.
Yeah, man. Good person. Anybody got any ghost stories?
I can only do one task at a time. Talking and hot torching, just that's about as best I can do. And even that's questionable. Okay, perfect, thank you.
So So this part of the process is very repetitive. Torch, squish, torch, squish, torch,
I'm sorry?
squish.
Talk about the programming we do. We have a multitude of programs here at Seneca. We are a nonprofit. Education is our primary focus. We have classes that range anywhere from 20 minutes all the way up to 4 weeks in length. And in the case of Rachael, 2 months or longer, depending on how the residency kind of shapes up. Those 20 to 30 minute classes are designed for you guys to come in and kind of experience the material. We teach glass blowing, flame working, and kiln form glass, all warm or hot approaches to play with the material. So if standing in front of an oven like this is not quite your speed, we've got options for you to kind of experience the material. The more in depth you get with it, the more you learn, the more you can get out of it. 1, maybe 1.5. I'll go for like a big heat if you want.
Okay, yeah. Get it.
Cool. But if you get bitten by the glass bug like most of us have, we will teach you curriculum and fundamentals of how to actually manipulate this material. And if you get good and comfortable enough, you can come rent the studio, so you've got a place to continually play, which is fantastic, because having this in your garage usually is not a viable option. I will do my very best. We have currently been working with a couple of different veterans groups. Hopefully you guys were able to make it down by the pool at Everly Plaza, where we have our exhibition Vitramoda going. And we've got a substantial amount of work in there from 30 different artists, over 80 pieces, including some of the work that we have done programming-wise with some of our veterans groups that we've been working with. Tatara Siegel is our education and outreach coordinator, and she's done a fabulous job of reaching out to veterans groups in the areas and giving those folks an opportunity to come in and experience the material and do a little bit of healing through playing with glass. What do you think, Rachael?
Yeah, I think the flames are good. So I kind of want to do spot heating around.
Okay.
See those, like, that negative space right there?
Right there.
Yeah.
Was that okay, Janet, or do you need more?
That's fine.
Okay. I'm sorry I can't talk and work very well at once, but I'll do my best. If you can give me more prompts, I can keep going. We have not worked with the at-risk youth in a minute. Certainly the pandemic kind of shifted things pretty substantially for us, but we are absolutely enthused and hopeful that we're going to get that opportunity to work with them again. We've worked with Project Success. We did have some of the kids from Camp Hope, which is through, oh goodness, I'm drawing a blank on the organization. Jean, help me. Camp Hope. One Safe Place. Thank you. The kids from One Safe Place. We host them once a year to come back after their summer camp and have a day of playing in glass. We get them involved in all 3 of the studios and then work together to do a couple of collaborative pieces. If you do have the opportunity to check online, there are QR codes in the gallery that actually have a spot where you can go bid on our online silent auction for one of the pieces that they did in the Camp Hope. It's a really exceptional world map that they created together with us. So take a look if you have the opportunity. So at this point, we're just kind of fine-tuning little spots. Where are we thinking, Rachael? Yep, gotcha. And my perspective is a little bit different working above it instead of straight onto it. So I need Rachel's kind of guidance to know where to hit this flame, and then she can kind of guide Blake into where she wants the heat to actually go. So we're always communicating in the glass blowing studio. Sometimes it's verbal, sometimes we're just pointing and grunting at each other. but in general, we always need to make sure we know we're all on the same page. Sweating.
Maybe one more flash.
Okay.
Short flashes.
The what?
Short flashes. I need to flash.
It's killing my back. How you doing, Blake?
I'm great.
Awesome.
Really, like, this is great for me. No stress. Exactly. Just tell me what to do.
Where are we? Turn.
Right there.
Got it. I spy. There we go. Nice big old blast of heat. Couple of mushes. There.
Yeah, right there.
Got it.
Yes.
More heat. Same spot.
No, right over here, and then straight on. Yeah, right. Like right on that, like close to that flange.
Okay. So at this point, we're just really fine-tuning all these nice little dimples that we built into it, making sure we've got the depth that Rachel's looking for, making sure we add the heat where we need it, keeping all those nice little flanges nice and warm so they don't get too brittle and break off. Turn, turn, turn.
Glass faces, keep turning it. Right here.
What do
Right there. I think that.
you got it?
Flash after this.
You got it? We'll do a dimple and a square, flash. Nice big old heat. Do a flash. We'll take one more look at it and do some fine tuning as needed. What do we think? Looking pretty good?
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool. So, should we tap or?
Eventually, yes, we will break it free.
Okay. Well, what do we do next? I forget.
We'll let it get cool. We wait. Blake will flash it a few times. Then take a seat. You'll probably take those jacks, grab the neckline, give a little bump, and pop it off.
Fire polish.
Yeah, we'll fire polish for sure. My hands work.
I like to live dangerously myself. That's impressive, Kevin.
I don't know what that's all about. Hi. Hi, y'all.
All right. So the next step is going to be to put this piece away in the annealer. That's going to let the piece chill out overnight.
Nicely done.
Glass is pretty prone to thermal shock, so we got to make sure that we slowly cool it down.
jacks or water?
Jacks or water? You gonna be on with the jacks? You gonna put the water? Can I do the water? Yeah, put it. Then you sit.
So everything's nice and cool. Last thing to do is add a little water on that concentric line by the head of the pipe. That's going to add a stress fracture directly around it. And put in that 4 or 5 touches. Then we're going to add a little vibration by taking those tweezers and getting the pipe. I'm going to catch it, hold it in the glove. Rachel's going to grab the hot torch, or no one will grab the hot torch, and just cook the cut section right off. Got it.
And then this piece is going to go into the annealer. We'll cool it down overnight. It'll come down to room temperature very slow. Nice! Nice job. Nice job, Rachel. Nice job, team. So I think that might have been nice job, team. All right, you guys. So we're gonna let the team take a little bit of a break because we're so close to the end of gallery night. That might have been the last demo.
What if we took the little mouth and did that as the knob?
We might do another quick little demo, but I'm gonna put the camera down while the team decides, and then we'll touch back in about a couple minutes.
We could do like a fake Napoleon or a fake little Maurice.
Oh, like the side?
No, we pick up the mouth because it's already bottom up. No, that wouldn't work.
How about we just put the feet down and then we'll just put it on and just
Push it around.
push it around?
Yes, you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're well.
Are you guys gonna make one more thing?
We
There's
got
that little
mouth.
mouth.
So we're trying to decide what we want to do with it.
Got it.
So, is that better than 0 chance?
We could like just squish it in a bubble or something.
Well, I mean, you could just punch you up to a cookie, but you're a surgeon. There's no reason.
I mean, technically it's your casting,
Right,
so do
yeah,
you have any
so-
thoughts on what you might want to do?
The only thing I'm kind of thinking of doing the same kind of thing with your fingers, but that might take some ball. So 20 minutes, right? So
Yeah. So
I don't
think,
mind.
yeah, think something simple, like something like a bubble shape is
Yeah.
going to be fairly fast if we don't have to turn it around.
If you can do clear, that'll expedite things too.
yeah,
Yeah.
you could clear and then just stick it.
Random idea. Feel free to ignore it. We could make like a pillow and push it the lip so it's like sensitive.
You could do that, Jeff Ballard.
You could totally. that's not your idea.
I'm thinking if we did a couple of quick gathers, blew into an optic, blew it out, and then sucked it back into itself, and then take the mouth, put it inside the enclosure bowl.
Cookie fun or no cookie?
Yeah, I'm worried about thick and thin.
Fair.
We want to have whatever we stick it to just thick, so that it
Yeah.
heals properly. Because
We could just blow a sphere, stick it to it, and then just push it.
I kind of like
Yeah,
that,
let's
like
do
a
that.
thick,
Let's-
All
like
right,
a thick
cool.
sphere.
Yeah.
Okay.
That on the side of it, so that it sits just on the break off,
Yeah.
and then we can have the mouth
have
either
straight up and
here
down
or
or sideways.
That part's
maybe at the top,
Yeah, up top is fine.
and then you can physically like push that bubble in, so
Yeah.
it kind of sets in.
Okay.
Cool. Okay.
Awesome.
Go.
Go team. All right, so it sounds like they've got some plan. We're going to figure out exactly what that is. But it sounds like there's a bubble involved, and there's a small little casting of Rachel's mouth that's going to be introduced into that.
Okay, I'll do 3 small.
We don't want it to be like blown.
Right. Well, I
We
mean,
want it to be blown, but still thick.
like a sculpture.
Like a, yeah. So that
Visual yourself is William Moore.
if only. There's
that's
not a
what I
snowball.
showed her.
Oh.
I showed her
It's pink.
Kind of a light pink color. So Kevin is going to start gathering some clear glass. He's going to blow a bubble around all the shape. And basically, we're just going to pick that piece out of the oven and squish so that bubble, or maybe even let the object kind of squish in. So it's not a perfect round shape. Have a little wiggle wherever we place it.
Hey Kevin, is your mic on or off?
My mic is off.
Okay, perfect. No, I just needed to know.
Okay, yeah, it is off.
Thanks, sir. All right, so we're back. Kevin is going to gather out of our furnace at about 2100 degrees. And then we're going to make a bubble and we're going to push Rachel's last casting into there.
Rotation's key. If you stop turning, gravity obviously works. The more you keep it in rotation, the better your balance. Trust me, it will not get you. You're on the other side of the black line. Can you pull the crimps off there for me, Rachel, please?
So Kevin's going to marver the glass on our marver to give it a little bit of shape.
So I'm just cooling and shaking the exterior, getting that slightly tapered cone form so I can add a bubble.
And then he's going to blow into the end
Have
of the
that bubble move
pipe.
predictably through the material.
We're going to
Just
see it
a little blow,
inflate.
tap my thumb on the pipe, and that's all we needed to get it moving. We'll reshape, kind of thicken up those back walls, let it get cold, and then put at least one, maybe two small, more applications of clear glass on top.
So the next step is letting the glass cool down because we're going to gather over that bubble. We don't want that bubble to be formed. So it is super important to let it chill out before going back in for the gather. So Kevin is gathering up another layer on top of this bubble.
I think we can keep that thick.
He's going to chill the pipe out
You're right, especially with the scale.
on the pipe cooler.
It's only 2100 degrees Fahrenheit. It is quite literally the temperature of magma coming out of a volcano. We can play with it.
But we're made out of water, like I showed you once.
That way he can grab the pipe close to the glass. That gives him a little bit more leverage as he's working. And then he's going to go into this block to cool and shape the glass as he's working. Now we're going for a Q-tip shape. That's going to give us a nice base for what we are making. And by keeping that block wet, we make sure we don't burn the wood up too fast. So Kevin is inflating this a little bit. And then using a wet newspaper to shape the glass.
Right on the edge.
It's a perfect hollow sculpture of a tub.
So by shaping the glass and then blowing, Kevin is slowly inflating as he is shaping. It's super important to make that bubble bigger carefully. We don't want to get the bottom too thin. We want to keep the walls kind of nice and even.
I would think about kind of
So he's cooling it selectively as he's working and inflating the glass. As always, it's important to keep heating it to make sure that the glass is not too cold.
I would use some wood. I would use something non-metal. So like, yeah, I don't know, break something. Or paddle, something short.
The grabbers are hanging up on the.
And then you can see the glass is like nice and gooey at this stage.
Sure.
Blake is going to use a blow hose to inflate the glass as Kevin is shaping. And then Kevin's going in with the jacks to create a little constriction. So if you've been on our live feed with us for a little while, you've seen us do this constriction a few times actually. That little constriction is going to help us break the glass free from that blowpipe.
So we've got a lot of thickness out there. Do we want to round that tip out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like flattery.
We're going to flattery it.
Flattery.
Nope. That will work with you.
So reheating is a very important part of the process. Cold glass doesn't move anywhere, so we got to reheat the glass to get it back to a moving state so we can continue to shape the glass as we go.
And blow, please. Blow hard. Harder more.
So as Blake is blowing, Kevin is using the jacks to create a constriction. Kevin's double checking the shape with Rachael because ultimately this is Rachel's
Where do we want
piece.
to stick them out? Oh, right on the top? Cool. We'll let that backside get pretty cool then, so when we stop the rotation, it's not super duper saggy.
And so Blake has got to gather a little bit of glass to pick up this last casting. We've got the casting in a pickup oven that is going to allow that glass to not get to be picked up and stuck to hot glass. So that little kiln is sitting at around maybe 1,000 degrees or so. Cold glass is going to shock, so we've got to make sure the glass is nice and toasty when we stick it to anything hot. So Blake is shaping up this punty on the marver. He's going to give it a little flash. And then he's going to come over to pick up the last casting. So after picking it up, very carefully goes back into the reheating chamber to kind of heat things back up. He's got to get it nice and toasty, but not super hot so that it doesn't lose any detail. Now this is a casting, which means it's got a bunch of delicate detail on the surface. And so he's got to heat it up a little bit, but trying to be careful so that we don't lose too much detail.
Might be a weird little crack, I think. Probably. We might have to do some healing a little bit. How about the straight shears? What is it? How about? Nice and sharp nowadays. All right, all right. flash and I'll be good.
So Blake is flashing, he's paying attention to the heat of the piece, and he's making sure that constriction is a little chilly.
Mush cap. Awesome flash. Love that.
That looks great.
Certified for that one. Great job, team. Oh, look at that.
You might have to torch it a little bit. I saw a crack on the side. Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Ah, yes.
So Kevin is heating that glass a little bit, just to make sure we take care of any potential cracks.
What a fun end. Love that.
That is pretty awesome. I'm gonna let Kevin give this a flash, and then I'll give you guys a close-up view, those of you who are hanging out on our live feed.
Awesome. So we'll flash it, let it get cool, break it off, put it in the oven, and we'll be done.
Nice job, team.
Absolutely have to thank Rachael, our artist in residence, for the last couple of months. It's been awesome and having you here playing with us. We hope it's not the last time we see you.
All right, let's get a close-up real fast. That is pretty cool. There's a ton of detail on that
Break this off?
casting. Beautiful.
Grab the pipe, take it for a flash. Flash it first.
Flash it?
Yep.
Oh, I got the wrong one.
There you go.
So Rachael is taking the last flash,
10 seconds, everybody into the pool. Bring it back.
just making sure that everything is heated a little bit evenly.
That's good.
And then she's going to bring it back to the bench. Ooh.
There you go. Pause the rotation. Make sure it's not moving. They look pretty good and solid. Squeeze them. Dip them, approach from behind always. Lay it down, nice contact.
She's going to put a little water on that constriction to make sure that the glass breaks right in that constriction point. So that water is going to chill it out.
Oh, like this?
Just like that.
Nice job.
We'll give it a little fire polish.
I got you.
Oh, that's what you mean by fire polish.
Okay.
The team's going to fire polish that break off a little bit.
Absolutely.
And then this piece is going to go into the annealer to cool down.
Set it on that left side, flat. Awesome! Yay!
Nice job. Nice job, team. So that annealer is sitting at around 900. It's going to slowly cool down in temperature to room temperature. Thank you again, Rachael, for coming out.
Thank you again for coming to play with us. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you everyone for joining us online.
And if you guys have
We are going to be demoing next month, on the second Friday of the month, so feel free to join us live again then. Rachael, say goodnight to everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you, Rachael. Thanks again. Take care, you all. See you next time.